In about 10 years since I stumbled into the transforming, remaking high school business. And apologies if that term offends you, as it does my friend Robert Pondicio. But 10 years it's been, and about 5 years ago in 2015, another group didn't quite stumble into it, but jumped into it, and with a whole lot more assets, resources than I have. To be specific, the inheritance of the Steve Jobs fortune, billions of dollars. And so far they've spent probably a couple $100 million on the idea of rethinking high school. So they've had a lot of efforts set out across the country in a bus, and I got to catch up with them in both Pittsburgh and Indianapolis, and would have loved to have caught them in a few more places. Saw their signs that took over Washington, D.C. Every bus stop, inside of a bus or billboard, they bought up the real estate on those things during a fall period. They had a September school reopening time television special, which they hired an amazing amount of people, a ton of stars. The centerpiece of their effort was to fund 10 and then 20 or more model schools. And that's the title of this segment: Model Schools Will Stay Model Schools. They won't help places like this much. It's a typical rural school. This building's brand new this year. It's the first time anyone's in it. They're not in it now because of the pandemic. But they got in there. They now have a 40-year lease on that thing. So one thing, they're not redesigning that building anytime soon. The far more critical reason is what I call the Calkins invention curve. You may know the Rogers innovation diffusion curve, and this is a modification of that. And basically what it says is that the percentage of the learning model adopted, that as you go deeper into the diffusion of new ways of doing things, farther into the population, from the early adopters into the latest adopters. As you go to the right of that curve, the percentage of the learning model that's adopted from external sources, not from internal sources, but from external sources, increases to nearly 99%. That makes sense? It's complicated. Stop and stare at that curve for a second. And it will, as soon as you think about it. It'll be obvious, and you're like, yeah, why don't people talk about that? So of course there's a chance that the XQ team, in their wisdom, has that in mind far down the road. That when they picked their 10 schools that were specifically coastal schools, California, Oregon, Texas, Virginia, New York, I think, and left the interior of the country out, that there was deep thinking in that. And that as they added the other schools, and as they've done the various initiatives they have in the last 5 years, that they're considering that adoption curve. I think they aren't. Or if they are, they're not thinking about it in the right way, in the right context. And again, it's not saying something bad about them. It's just saying that they've missed this critical bit. And part of that is that all school is knowledge-based. And that has not been a popular idea over the last 10, 15 years. We're getting closer to the nub of fixing, transforming, raising the bar on what we give teenagers.